The sound of planes slicing through the night sky, the soft rustle of boots on frozen European soil, the whispered orders in a dimly lit room, this is where America learns the art of secret war. Imagine it, 1943, behind enemy lines in Nazi-occupied France, a young American officer writes home about the fear and adrenaline, signing off, "If this works, the world might never know what we did." That letter never reaches his family. His story, and thousands like it, are the blueprint for the CIA. During World War II, the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, becomes the United States' first real attempt at organized intelligence and clandestine operations. Born from the chaos of global war, the OSS trains its operatives in sabotage, espionage, and subversion. Parachuting into occupied territories, they gather intelligence, train resistance fighters, and prepare the ground for major Allied operations. Without their work, D-Day might have been unimaginable. Take Virginia Hall, one of the most daring operatives of the OSS. A woman in a male-dominated field, she walks through Nazi checkpoints with a prosthetic leg, carrying microfilm intelligence in her coat. She radios coded messages to London while constantly evading capture. Her bravery earns her the nickname the Limping Lady, but for those who receive her reports, she is simply vital. Every letter she types, every resistance network she builds, becomes a lifeline for the Allies. Can you imagine the courage it takes to move through enemy territory knowing a single mistake could end your life? Meanwhile, across Europe, OSS teams coordinate with French resistance fighters. These aren't uniformed armies but ordinary citizens, farmers, students, and clerks, all willing to risk everything for liberation. OSS officers supply them with weapons, explosives, and tactical training. They transmit critical intelligence on German troop movements, supply lines, and fortifications. One American operative, Alan Dulles, later recalls, "We were teaching civilians to become soldiers in the shadows. Every operation was a whisper in the dark, a gamble with fate." By 1944, as the Allies prepare for the invasion of Normandy, OSS networks are in place. They have sabotaged rail lines, disrupted German communications, and fed false information to enemy forces. It's a shadow war that nobody sees on the beaches, but it is just as crucial as the tanks and infantry storming Omaha and Utah. American soldiers step onto the sands, unaware that behind them, invisible hands have been shaping the battlefield for months. The OSS also experiments with psychological operations. Leaflets dropped from planes encourage German soldiers to surrender. Radio broadcasts in coded English and German plant confusion. Agents study enemy behavior, noting patterns, fears, and weaknesses. Every insight becomes a tool, a way to turn the tide without firing a shot. One OSS officer, Robert Ford, writes home that sometimes the quietest victories are the most important. A train doesn't have to explode if the right rumor can stop its journey entirely. After the war, the OSS is disbanded, but its legacy is just beginning. In 1947, President Truman signs the National Security Act, and the Central Intelligence Agency is born. Former OSS officers, seasoned in covert operations, now have a permanent home. Their missions shift from occupied Europe to the ideological battlefields of the Cold War. Now, it's no longer Nazi Germany, but the Soviet Union and its global network of influence. The CIA's first task is intelligence gathering, but quickly, clandestine operations take center stage. From Cuba to Eastern Europe, operatives are trained to move unseen, collect secrets, and, when necessary, manipulate events to favor American interests. This is not conventional warfare. There are no front lines, no uniforms, and no clear victories. Success is measured in what the world never knows happened. Consider the story of Alan Dulles in the late 1940s. Stationed in Bern, Switzerland, he oversees a network of spies across Eastern Europe. Every cable he receives is a puzzle piece, showing troop deployments, industrial production, and political shifts. Agents risk capture, torture, and execution. Some disappear without a trace. The stakes are unimaginable, yet they continue. Their work shapes American foreign policy, often before politicians even understand the full picture. In the early 1950s, the CIA begins Operation PB Success in Guatemala. The goal is to overthrow a government seen as aligning with Soviet interests. Agents employ psychological operations, propaganda, and coordination with local forces. They train rebels, fund opposition groups, and manipulate media to create the appearance of widespread dissent. It is a stark evolution from the OSS days. World War II's battlefield bravery now merges with diplomacy, manipulation, and secrecy. But every operation carries risk. A single misstep can compromise the entire network. Agents carry false identities, coded messages, and the knowledge that capture could be fatal. They operate in shadow cities, safe houses, and foreign capitals, always aware that one careless word could undo years of planning. Memoirs from former officers reveal sleepless nights, constant vigilance, and the loneliness of living double lives. Even in Europe, the Cold War heats up. Berlin becomes a chessboard of intelligence. The CIA moves assets across the Iron Curtain, smuggling information and personnel between sectors. Operations include everything from listening posts in East Germany to daring escapes across the Berlin Wall before it's even built. Each mission is a delicate dance, balancing risk with the necessity of understanding the Soviet threat. One CIA operative, who later recounts his experience under the pseudonym Richard, tells of nights spent shadowing Soviet agents in Vienna. He memorized faces, notes routines, and records movements, all while blending into cafes and train stations. You learn to vanish in plain sight, he says. The moment you think you're safe, you're already in danger. Stories like his highlight the continuous tension, a world where the wrong step can mean life or death, yet duty drives every action. By the late 1950s, covert operations extend to Asia. In Korea, agents gather intelligence on North Korean movements, while in Southeast Asia, emerging conflicts attract increasing attention. The CIA establishes paramilitary training, often working with allied governments to bolster anti-communist forces. Lessons from OSS World War II operations remain invaluable. The principles of training locals, building resistance networks, and operating unseen are adapted to new geopolitical landscapes. The Cold War is as much about perception as it is about action. Propaganda campaigns, psychological operations, and intelligence collection dominate the landscape. The CIA's role is to stay one step ahead, predicting moves before they happen. Field officers maintain constant vigilance, and headquarters analyzes every fragment of information. Even a simple intercepted letter can reveal a web of political or military plans. Meanwhile, stories emerge of audacious missions that read like spy novels. Agents infiltrate hostile countries using false identities, secret codes, and elaborate disguises. They meet in dimly lit safe houses, swap intelligence, and exfiltrate assets under the cover of darkness. The operations are meticulous, each step rehearsed and double-checked. Every detail matters, because failure could compromise not only the mission but national security itself. One operation, in particular, highlights the CIA's daring approach. Agents in Eastern Europe coordinate with local resistance to intercept Soviet communications. They risk exposure daily, knowing that capture means imprisonment or execution. Yet, they persist, driven by duty and a belief that their work safeguards freedom far beyond their immediate reach. Letters home describe the tension, but also a deep sense of purpose. "We are shadows protecting light," one officer writes, "though the world may never know." Across the Atlantic, headquarters in Langley becomes the nerve center. Analysts pore over maps, intercepted cables, and reconnaissance photographs. They coordinate with operatives on the ground, providing support and guidance. Every decision is weighed against potential consequences. The pressure is immense, but the stakes could not be higher. The Cold War is a global chess game, and each CIA mission is a calculated move with consequences that could ripple worldwide. Through all of this, ordinary Americans remain unaware of the scope of these operations. Public perception of the CIA is limited to headlines, rumors, or the occasional hero story. Yet behind the scenes, the agency works tirelessly, building networks, gathering intelligence, and executing missions that prevent crises before they reach the public eye. Their actions shape history without ever stepping into the spotlight. As the 1960s approach, operations grow bolder. The CIA tests techniques in paramilitary training, sabotage, and influence operations, learning from both successes and failures. Each mission is meticulously documented, lessons recorded for future operatives. The agency evolves, taking OSS principles from World War II and applying them to the complex, ideologically charged battlefields of the Cold War. And yet, every operation carries shadows. Mistakes are costly, not just in lives but in international trust. The tension between secrecy and accountability defines every mission. Officers constantly weigh the moral and practical implications of their actions, navigating a world where the line between heroism and disaster is razor-thin. Then there are the human stories. Agents fall in love, write letters, dream of home, yet their lives are defined by secrecy. The loneliness is palpable, but so is the camaraderie among those who share the risk. Small victories, a rescued asset, a foiled plot, a successful intelligence intercept, bring quiet triumph, often without recognition. These moments define their careers and their courage. And now, we reach a moment that will change everything. In the heart of Eastern Europe, a critical network is compromised. Agents realize that Soviet counterintelligence is closing in, a situation so perilous that a single misstep could unravel years of work. The operative leading the network sends one last coded message back to Langley, a desperate signal that the world may never see, but which could tip the balance in the silent war raging behind the Iron Curtain. And just as the message is transmitted, footsteps echo in the alley outside, doors creak open, and the shadowy figure of a Soviet agent appears, waiting, watching, ready to strike. Inside the safe house, the operative's heart pounds. Every instinct screams to vanish, yet escape routes are blocked. He grips his radio, fingers trembling, knowing that the message he just sent may be the only lifeline to Langley. Outside, the Soviet agent pauses, listening to the faint static of the city. One wrong move, and everything collapses. The network, the mission, even lives on both sides. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Virginia, analysts at CIA headquarters decode the desperate signal. Their eyes scan lines of text, calculating possibilities, assigning assets to contingency plans. The agency has rehearsed crises like this countless times, but the tension is as real as any battlefield. The fate of an entire network, and potentially critical intelligence about Soviet operations, rests on the next decisions. Across Europe, similar scenes unfold. Agents in Warsaw, Prague, and Budapest maneuver in shadows, exchanging coded messages, slipping through checkpoints, blending with crowds. Each operation is high-stakes chess, each contact a potential turning point. The Cold War is not fought in trenches but in alleys, hotels, and clandestine safe houses. And while the world sleeps, America's operatives move unseen, shaping events far beyond public view. Consider the Berlin Tunnel operation of the mid-1950s. CIA engineers and operatives collaborate to tap Soviet communication lines beneath the city. It's meticulous, nerve-wracking work. One misstep could alert the KGB and trigger international scandal. Day after day, agents descend into cramped tunnels, mapping lines, installing microphones, and logging messages. Their reward is unseen, intelligence that could prevent crises, save lives, and keep the balance of power in check. Then there's the Cuban theater, where the CIA orchestrates complex operations against a regime aligned with the Soviet Union. Covert teams train rebels, gather intelligence, and plan sabotage, all under tight secrecy. Every operation is a delicate balance between boldness and prudence. Miscalculations can escalate into international incidents. In letters and later memoirs, agents recall the tension, the sense of history pressing down on them, and the weight of responsibility that comes with acting in the shadows. Agents are taught to think like ghosts. They memorize streets, accents, habits, and cultural quirks. Every interaction can be an opportunity or a trap. One CIA officer recalls trailing a Soviet diplomat through Vienna. I followed him across 3 city blocks, unnoticed. Every step felt like a lifetime. I was learning not just what they were doing, but how they thought. These observations inform policy, influence decisions, and shape the American approach to global strategy. By the 1960s, the agency is deeply embedded across the globe. Every region presents unique challenges: Latin America, Asia, Europe, the Middle East. Covert teams operate in jungles, cities, deserts, and mountains. Each mission is designed to protect American interests while staying invisible. Success is measured not in headlines but in stability, in the prevention of crises, in the intelligence that informs leaders before a conflict ignites. The personal stakes are relentless. Operatives live double lives. They marry under assumed names, communicate in code, and constantly balance fear with duty. The loneliness is profound, yet bonds among field agents are unbreakable. Every agent knows that someone else might be risking everything to safeguard them, and that trust becomes a lifeline in a world defined by secrecy. Some missions succeed spectacularly. Others fail silently, leaving operatives captured, disappeared, or compromised. The Cold War is relentless in its complexity. One wrong decision can trigger international tension. One overlooked detail can cost lives. The CIA's successes are often invisible, known only to those in the room, in safe houses, and on radio frequencies. Their bravery is unheralded, their vigilance constant. In one harrowing operation, a team in Eastern Europe must extract an asset before Soviet counterintelligence closes the net. They travel by night, using forged papers, safe routes, and misdirection. Their movements are precise, rehearsed, and perilous. As they near the extraction point, footsteps echo too close, a shadow detaches from the wall, and the air is tense with imminent danger. Every second counts. At headquarters, analysts monitor the operation with bated breath. Every signal, every coded message is scrutinized. They know that failure would have consequences far beyond the field: political fallout, compromised intelligence, and the potential endangerment of countless lives. The stakes of this silent war are extraordinary, and the pressure is immense. Meanwhile, agents' personal courage is relentless. In letters sent home after the war, some describe the constant fear, the long nights, and the burden of secrecy. Others recount moments of humanity, a shared meal with a local informant, a whispered word of thanks, or a fleeting sense of normalcy in a life that is otherwise defined by danger. It is these small, quiet acts of bravery that give depth to the CIA's covert operations. By the mid-1960s, the Cold War reaches a critical point. Cuba, Berlin, and Southeast Asia are all focal points for intelligence activity. The CIA operates simultaneously on multiple continents, each mission interlinked with the larger strategy. Agents must think globally and act locally, blending espionage, psychological operations, and diplomacy. It is an intricate web, where success is never guaranteed, yet failure is catastrophic. And then, in a twist that will echo through history, an agent in Moscow intercepts a coded message detailing Soviet plans that could change the global balance of power. The message is fragmented, the risk immense, but the information is too critical to ignore. Operatives begin immediate preparations to exploit the intelligence, aware that one misstep could result in capture, international incident, or worse. Back in the field, the stakes are heart-stopping. The operative who sent the desperate signal in Eastern Europe now maneuvers through the streets, constantly aware of surveillance. Every shadow could be a threat, every passerby a potential observer. His training, instincts, and courage are tested to the limits. Langley monitors every move, coordinating contingencies and providing what support they can from thousands of miles away. The tension reaches a breaking point. As night falls, the operative reaches the extraction point. Vehicles wait in the darkness, allies positioned to cover every possible threat. A single false move could jeopardize not just him, but an entire network, and potentially compromise decades of intelligence work. Every heartbeat echoes, every breath counts, and the world waits unknowingly for a single, decisive action. Then, just as he steps forward, a sudden noise, a door slamming, a footstep behind him, alerts him to immediate danger. He spins, radio in hand, and the realization hits: the Soviet agent has anticipated his move. The chase is on, every decision instantaneous. Success is measured in seconds, survival in precision and luck. Across continents, Langley acts. Analysts reroute signals, operatives shift positions, and contingencies unfold with military precision. The Cold War is a global stage, yet this moment, in a dark alley in Eastern Europe, epitomizes the silent battle waged between nations, ideologies, and individual courage. The stakes are monumental, the outcome uncertain, and the history being written unseen by the world. And in that final instant, the operative disappears into shadow, the Soviet agent inches closer, and the air is electric with possibility and peril. Somewhere, a radio crackles with one last coded message, a whisper that could change the course of the Cold War, yet leaves the world utterly unaware. What happens next could alter the balance of power, expose decades of secrecy, and rewrite history itself.